Welcome to Beyond the Books. My name is Nate Eaton with EastIdahoNews.com, here with Devin Bodkin. He is the Eastern Idaho reporter for Idaho Education News. We have a big election less than a week away. Normally the midterms no one really pays attention to, but of course we're electing a governor here in Idaho, lieutenant governor, and school superintendent. That's what we're talking about today here. First of all, Devin, tell us a little bit about the two candidates that are running.
Well, you're right. This is a big election, a kind of a historic election on the national level.
Yeah.
But it's a big deal. We have two candidates, one from the Republican side and one from the Democrat side. When we talk about K-12 education in Idaho and the state superintendent, they oversee a huge department over there. And we're talking about over 300,000 kids in Idaho's public K-12 system. We're talking about something that commands almost half of the state's entire budget right off the bat, a more than $3 billion budget. And then we're talking about an issue that's really important to a lot of Idahoans. We've done some polling that shows that most Idahoans see education as the #1 issue in the state. And so that's a little bit of background to this election.
And whoever's elected on Tuesday will be responsible for those 300,000
They will
students.
head the State Department of Education,
They're
yes.
at the top. So we've got Sherri Ybarra, who's been in there, the Republican candidate, and then we have Cindy Wilson, she's the Democratic candidate.
Yes.
What do we know about them?
So Ybarra's been in there for 4 years. She's the Republican incumbent candidate in the race, and she's a former teacher and administrator in the Mountain Home School District. Cindy Wilson, the Democrat, is a recently retired teacher. She taught for 33 years. She's kind of taught all over the state. Including East Idaho, she taught in the Shelley School District years ago. And yeah, she's the Democrat in the race.
She's well liked, from what I understand, in Shelley. Obviously, she's from this side of the state, you know, from what I've seen.
Yeah, Cindy's campaigned all over the state. She's campaigned heavily leading up to this election. She's been everywhere. And she's gotten some big endorsements in the state, including from some people who typically support Republicans, some local.
Frank Vandersloot the other day.
Yeah, that's the big news. Mr. Vandersloot came out and not only said he endorses her, but pledged to me. He said he's going to give her $5,000 personally, and then his company, Malaluka, is going to give her $5,000 as well. So he's giving her some financial support too.
Which is the max that you can donate, right?
Yes, that's the max that can be donated in Idaho.
So normally a position like this isn't as partisan as some of the others. It doesn't really matter, some might say, if you're a Democrat or a Republican, because everyone wants the best for the children.
In education in general, we don't find some of those wedge issues that we find in other areas. Like, we're not talking gun control, we're not talking about health care. But they do have differences. And it's interesting, I was looking 4 years ago when Ybarra ran for the state superintendency. She ran against a Democrat, and it was a very tight race. I think that she won by just a little over 5,000 votes. She had a little under 51% of the vote, and her Democratic opponent had close to 50%. So it was really tight in a deeply red state like Idaho. And so, leading up into the election, I don't think that the D and the R behind each of the candidates' name will have the effect that it could have in some of the other races happening.
And do you think that the public is tuned in on these type of issues versus the governor's race or a senator's race? State superintendent, don't know who either of the names are, I'll just go with the party line.
Well, I hope so, and that's one of the reasons we're around. Folks can check out Idaho Ed News. We've covered all three of the debates extensively. Yeah. We've followed up that coverage. Kevin Richard and Clark Corbin, our reporters in Boise, have followed up those debates with fact-checking stories. So I would just encourage people, if they don't know much about it, to get on the website, go back and look at some of those stories and find out where these candidates stand. And we can talk briefly about where they do stand. Yeah. I mean, both of them have addressed the need for finding and for recruiting and retaining more teachers in the state. That's something that they both say needs to happen. Superintendent Ybarra, the Republican, has talked a lot also about the state's arcane school funding formula. There's a push right now, and she's a part of that push to revamp that funding model. And Wilson, on top of finding and retaining teachers, she's talked a lot about increasing literacy rates among Idaho's youngest students. She feels that that's very important. But she's also gone on the offensive and some would say some missteps from Superintendent Ybarra have given her an opportunity to do that here in the months leading up to the debate, or excuse me, to the election. So, you know, one of the things that she's really hit hard is some criticism that Ybarra has received in recent months from members of her own party. She has a major initiative, a school safety initiative called KISS, the Keep Idaho Students Safe initiative. We found some of the folks in the Office of School Safety and Security said that they didn't know that this was going to be happening, that they didn't consult her in this attempt. And she sort of defended herself. In past debates, Wilson's pounced, and Ybarra said, look, you know, this is important, it's an urgent thing in her mind, and she used the analogy of a child playing in the road. She said, if your kid's in the road, are you going to wait and talk to your neighbor and ask them if it's okay to go and grab the kid? So she sort of defended herself in that way. She got some criticism from some prominent Republicans, including the House Education Chair and a member of the Joint Finance Appropriations Committee, who said that they didn't really talk to her much during the session.
So that's some of the criticism that Ybarra has received. What's the criticism that Cindy Wilson is getting?
Well, she's criticized Wilson for not being informed on some of the more inner workings in Boise, including the School Safety and Security Office. But she's also really tried to tag her time as a state superintendent as improving student performance in Idaho. And that's something that they've disagreed on in every single debate up to this point. One of the specifics is Idaho's graduation rate, which is a little below 80%. From 2016 to 2017, there was this very, very slight increase of 0.01% increase in Idaho's graduation rate. And that's the equivalent of, out of 20,000 seniors, two more graduating from the year before. Ybarra kind of celebrated that and said, you know, that students should be commended for that, and Wilson's attacked her as, you know, saying that that's, you know, celebrating mediocrity, and that if she's elected, you know, people will see much more substantial improvements in those areas.
You think it'll be close?
I don't like to predict, but, you know, again, we can go back to 2014 when Ybarra, you know, won by just a couple percentage points. And, you know, it's been interesting to see in these last few months some of the support that Wilson has got from the other side of the aisle, including from Frank Vandersloot. But Ybarra's also gotten some, you know, publicly some big endorsements. Both Governor Otter and Lieutenant Governor Brad Little, who's also running for governor, have publicly endorsed her.
Well, it will be an interesting race to watch. As Devin mentioned, you can watch all of the debates on idahoednews.org and go to their websites too. Check out what they stand for, what those issues are. Thanks, Devin. Thank you for watching Beyond the Books. If you have any ideas you want to see us cover, please email us, and have a good week. Be sure you vote.